It's 3 a.m. You open your eyes, stare at the ceiling, and your brain instantly boots up a mental calculator. If I fall asleep in 10 minutes, I can get exactly 3 hours and 42 minutes of rest before my alarm. We have built our lives around a very specific cultural expectation. The gold standard for health is sliding into bed, knocking out for 8 continuous hours, and waking up with the sun. Modern medicine often labels any failure to meet this standard as a chemical defect, a clinical disorder that makes us feel defective by design. Looking back through human evolution reveals that this 3 a.m. awakening served as a prehistoric survival tool. Our primal wiring still expects the risks of the savanna, creating a massive mismatch with the safety of a modern bedroom. This chart compares the predicted sleep durations of primates based on body mass, brain size, and metabolic rate. According to these phylogenetic models, a mammal with our specific characteristics should naturally require about 10.5 to 11 hours of sleep per night. But adding humans to the graph, the line drops to 6.5 hours. We have the largest brains in the primate family, yet we are the shortest sleepers. Millions of years ago, our ancestors slept safely like this orangutan, high up in arboreal canopy nests. Transitioning to the savanna floor changed the stakes. Ground sleeping meant exposure to intense predation and rifle groups in the pitch black. Spending 10 hours completely unconscious on the ground carried a fatal evolutionary cost. To survive, our ancestors traded quantity for quality, evolving a sleep cycle packed with high proportions of REM sleep. We compressed our vulnerability into the shortest possible window. This hyper-efficient architecture allowed our ancestors to reclaim waking hours while surviving a landscape where prolonged unconsciousness meant death. This terrestrial survival strategy explains why teenagers stay up past midnight and why grandparents wake up at 4 a.m. complaining they can't sleep. Evolutionary anthropologists tested the Sentinel Hypothesis, the idea that social animals share the burden of vigilance, by tracking the sleep of 33 adults in the Hadza hunter-gatherer tribe in Tanzania. This graph tracks a typical 12-hour night in the camp. Over 20 days of tracking, there were only 18 minutes when every adult was simultaneously unconscious. At any moment, 40% were awake. Younger adults stayed up late, while elders woke before dawn. These varied schedules represent the poorly sleeping grandparent hypothesis in action, a communal security system hardwired into our DNA. As humans migrated out of Africa into higher latitudes, they faced long, cold winter nights. In these environments, the consolidated sleep block naturally fractured into a biphasic or two-part cycle. Historians have documented thousands of references to this schedule in pre-industrial societies. People routinely experienced a first sleep, followed by a peaceful midnight interval called the watch, before returning to a second sleep until dawn. In 1992, sleep scientist Dr. Thomas Ware proved this is a default biological mode. When he placed his modern subjects into 14 hours of daily darkness, their continuous sleep completely broke apart. They naturally reverted to that exact biphasic split. This line graph shows hormone levels during the night. Notice how prolactin, a hormone associated with tranquility, stays flat during normal sleep, but spikes upward during that midnight waking interval. That midnight awakening is actually the brain attempting to access a sacred, chemically soothing state of rest that the Industrial Revolution erased. If the 3 a.m. awakening is a natural biological feature, why does it trigger such intense anxiety in the modern world? The problem is a phenomenon called sleep effort. When you worry about tomorrow's schedule, you activate your sympathetic nervous system, flooding your body with cortisol. Your ancient brain cannot distinguish between the stress of a deadline and the threat of a predator. It misinterprets your frustration as an emergency and locks you out of deep sleep to keep you alert. We exacerbate this by sleeping in isolated, solitary bedrooms. For millions of years, we slept surrounded by the auditory and physical safety cues of a group. Removing those cues leaves the nervous system on high alert. The modern bedroom is an evolutionary trap. Instead of soothing our biology, it triggers our primal threat detection circuitry. You can short-circuit this panic using metacognitive labeling. This involves identifying your nighttime anxiety as a biological misfire rather than a real threat. When you wake up, do not look at the clock. Instead, actively reframe the moment. Remind yourself that your body is simply executing its ancestral watch. You can support this by mimicking the environmental cycles of our ancestors. Maintain a cold bedroom to signal your hypothalamus, and anchor your rhythm by stepping into bright morning sunlight immediately upon rising. While we cannot out-engineer 2 million years of evolution, changing the story we tell ourselves in the dark allows us to make peace with our biology.